The galaxy had known peace for centuries, a peace enforced by the great galactic empire, whose reach extended across star systems and civilizations, each one bound by its vast and unyielding rule. The empire's iron grip on the galaxy was absolute, its fleets unrivaled, its warriors unmatched. So when a small unassuming ship appeared at the edges of the empire's most sacred territory, it went unnoticed at first. The humans had only recently begun to explore the stars. Their presence in galactic space was seen as a mere curiosity, a species too young, too inexperienced to matter to those who ruled the heavens, and so they were left to their own devices. But as the human ship drifted closer to the heart of the empire, it began to draw attention, a small blip on the radar, something out of place, something that shouldn't be there. The ship was the Titan, a prototype built in secret by the best minds of Earth, but even its creators could not have predicted what would happen next. The ship was unarmed and uninvited. It had no purpose other than to test the boundaries of human innovation. Yet it had ventured too far, too deep into the Empire's territory. And now it was surrounded by Imperial warships, their engines humming with the cold threat of destruction. From the moment the Titan entered the Empire's space, its presence was considered an intrusion, a violation of the peace, a challenge to the power of the Galactic Emperor who had ruled with such certainty for so long. The human crew of the Titan had no idea what they were walking into. They had been on a simple reconnaissance mission, just a routine survey of the galaxy's uncharted territories. Yet as the ship approached the Empire's core worlds, they found themselves face to face with the Empire's most elite fleet, 4 massive warships, each bristling with weapons beyond anything humanity had ever seen. The human captain, Commander Sarah Hayes, stood on the bridge of the Titan, staring at the screens in front of her, a sense of dread washing over her. There was no way to outrun these ships. Even if they tried, she could feel the tension in the air as her crew went silent, each person on board realizing the same thing: they were outmatched. They had no chance against this overwhelming force. The comms crackled to life. The voice of an Imperial officer echoed through the ship's speakers, a tone of condescension dripping from his words. "Human ship, you have trespassed into restricted space. Surrender immediately or face destruction." Commander Hayes took a deep breath, her mind racing with options. There were none, not unless they made a stand. There was no way back, no way to escape. She turned to her crew, who were waiting for her orders. The decision weighed heavily on her. They could fight, but they had no chance of winning. But something inside her refused to surrender. Not yet, not without a fight. The Empire thought they were unbeatable, but maybe they didn't understand what humanity was capable of. Maybe they underestimated the very thing that had allowed them to survive on Earth against all odds. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Hayes ordered, her voice steady as she stood tall in the face of impending doom. The crew scrambled into action, and for the first time in a long while, the humans on board the Titan felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this was their moment to prove themselves, to show the galaxy that humanity was more than just a footnote in the grand history of the stars. And so it began, the first chapter in humanity's unexpected war against the greatest power the galaxy had ever known. The human crew of the Titan scrambled in a frenzy as the Imperial fleet closed in. The massive warships of the Empire loomed like predators, circling their prey. Commander Hayes gripped the armrest of her chair as the ship's engines roared to life. The Titan lurched forward with sudden speed, the crew barely keeping their footing as the ship banked hard to the left. The Imperial ships pursued without hesitation, each one firing a barrage of energy blasts that lit up the dark expanse of space like bursts of thunder. Every shot was a calculated strike, designed to disable the ship with precision. Yet every time the Titan dodged, every time they narrowly avoided certain destruction. Hayes could feel the sweat on her brow, but she refused to panic. Her crew had trained for moments like this, but no amount of training could have prepared them for the sheer power of the Imperial fleet. On the bridge, Lieutenant Anna Vega monitored the ship's systems, her fingers flying across the control panels as she tracked the enemy fire. "We can't keep this up much longer," she said, her voice tense. The shields were holding for now, but with every passing second they weakened. The Imperial ships had weapons that could slice through the Titan's defenses like a hot knife through butter. The ship was too advanced for the humans to fully understand, yet too valuable to lose. "We need a weapon, something we can use against them," Commander Hayes muttered to herself as she looked at the glowing screens of the ship's control room. The Imperial fleet was closing in fast. They were running out of time. "Captain," a voice called out from behind her. It was Chief Engineer Jacob Moore. "There's something I found in the lower decks, something I didn't fully understand when we first tested it, but it might be the key to surviving this." Hayes turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about, Moore?" Moore wiped the sweat from his brow before speaking in a tone that betrayed his usual calm. "There's a weapon hidden inside the Titan, something ancient built into its design, but we never activated it in the testing phases. It's not in the schematics, but it's here, and it might be the answer we're looking for." Without wasting another moment, Hayes gave the order, "Activate it, whatever it is, we need it now." The ship shook as the engineers began to power up the unknown system. The hum of the ship's systems grew louder, a deep resonance that seemed to come from the very core of the ship. Then, without warning, the Titan emitted a powerful pulse of energy, a blinding blue light, engulfing the bridge for a moment. The crew shielded their eyes, unsure of what was happening. But when the light faded, they saw it. The Imperial ships ahead of them began to slow their advance, as if caught off guard by something they could not comprehend. "What just happened?" Vega asked, her voice full of disbelief. "I don't know, but it worked," Hayes replied, her voice barely a whisper of shock in her words. Moore appeared at her side with a triumphant grin on his face. "That pulse, it disrupted their targeting systems and disoriented their shields for a few moments. It's not much, but it's enough to give us a chance." Hayes looked out at the approaching Imperial ships, and for the first time since the encounter had begun, she felt a spark of something she hadn't expected: hope. "We have one shot at this," she said with a fire in her eyes. "Prepare for an offensive. We're not running anymore." The crew readied themselves. The hum of the engines became a steady beat, their hands working in sync as the once defenseless ship now transformed into a weapon of retaliation. The Titan was no longer just a test ship. It was a symbol of defiance, and as it turned to face the Imperial fleet, the galaxy would soon know that humanity was not so easily defeated. The pulse of energy had created a temporary advantage, but now the Titan was entering uncharted territory. They had no idea what kind of weapon they had just activated, and whether it would work again, but there was no time to question it. They had only one option: fight or die. Hayes steeled herself as the crew moved into action. She watched the Imperial fleet adjust their formations. Their ships were more disciplined than the humans had anticipated, the sleek cruisers moving in a precise arc to surround them. But the Titan wasn't just any ship. It was a reflection of human ingenuity, the crew's skills, and the heart of a species that had survived against every odd, and this was their moment to prove it. "Full speed ahead," Hayes commanded, her voice sharp and clear. The ship surged forward with surprising speed and precision, weaving through the enemy formations with ease, her eyes locked on the nearest Imperial cruiser, which was charging its weapons. "Fire everything we've got." The Titan unleashed a barrage of energy blasts from its cannons, the beams cutting through space like streaks of lightning. The first blast hit the Imperial cruiser's forward shields, causing them to flare and crack. The ship rocked, but it held strong. The second blast tore through the weakened shield and struck the ship's engines, igniting them in a fiery explosion. The Imperial cruiser lurched to the side, its power systems faltering, and with one final shot, the Titan sent it spiraling out of control as it collided with another Imperial ship in a chaotic explosion. "One down," Lieutenant Vega said, her voice filled with disbelief. But there was no time for celebration. The remaining Imperial ships immediately adjusted their tactics, now realizing that humanity's warship was no easy target. They came at the Titan from all sides, their weapons unleashing a devastating hail of fire. Yet the humans were quick on their feet, every shot dodged by a hair's breadth, every turn a perfectly calculated move. "Shields at 50%. Moore called out from engineering. "We can't keep this up much longer. We need to end this fast." "We will," Hayes said with determination in her voice. "Get us in close to that battleship." She pointed to the largest of the Imperial vessels, one that had been commanding the battle. It was a beast of a ship bristling with firepower, but Hayes could see its weakness. Its engines were exposed near the rear of the ship. It was a calculated risk, but the only one that could guarantee their victory. The Titan surged forward, once again dodging blasts that came from every angle. As they moved closer to the battleship, the human crew worked in perfect harmony, every move coordinated with precision. They were no longer just a crew of misfits, they were a team of force to be reckoned with. "Get ready," Hayes muttered under her breath, her grip tightening on the chair as she calculated the perfect moment. Vega fired the engines to full power, sending the Titan hurtling toward the battleship, its target locked in the eyes system. "Firing thrusters now," she called out as the ship made its final approach. The Imperial warship shields flared with energy, trying to block their path. But Hayes had a plan. They wouldn't go through the shields, they would go under them. The Titan dove under the enemy ship, flying straight at the exposed engine vents. Hayes counted down in her mind, and just as they were within range, she ordered the final strike. "Now," she shouted. A massive pulse of energy erupted from the ship's lower guns, the blast hitting the battleship's exposed engines directly, causing a chain reaction that ripped through its core. The ship buckled, and then exploded in a cataclysmic burst of light. The Titan barely escaped the blast radius, but the shockwave rattled the crew as the remnants of the Imperial battleship were scattered across the void. "Direct hit," Moore said, his voice filled with awe. "We did it," Vega said, almost in disbelief. The Imperial fleet was in disarray, their morale shattered, their strongest ship gone. The Titan had delivered the blow that would be remembered for centuries to come. The galaxy now had a new power, and humanity had proven that they were not a species to be underestimated. The aftermath of the battle left the Imperial fleet in chaos, their once unstoppable dominance shattered by the unexpected and brutal strike of the Titan. Hayes stood on the bridge, staring out into the void, where the remains of the Imperial battleship floated like a grim reminder of what humanity was capable of. The crew was silent, but their faces reflected a mix of exhaustion, disbelief, and something else, a spark of pride. They had just taken down the heart of the Empire's most powerful fleet, and for the first time since the encounter had begun, they allowed themselves to breathe. "We did it," Moore said softly, his eyes still wide with shock. He could barely believe the ship had survived the explosion, but there it was, still intact, still floating among the wreckage of their enemies. "Not yet," Hayes replied, her voice steady as ever. "We've only just begun." Vega turned from the control panel, her expression serious. "We've taken down their flagship, but there's still a whole fleet out there. They won't just let this go." Hayes nodded. "I know the Empire will retaliate, but we've shown them that we're not the weaklings they thought we were. They won't take us lightly anymore." She paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. "We're going to have to fight for every inch of ground from here on out." The crew acknowledged the command and began preparing for the inevitable counterattack. The Titan was no longer an unknown anomaly in the eyes of the Empire. It was now the greatest threat to their dominance. And with that recognition came the realization that the galaxy would never be the same again. As the Titan drifted toward a nearby uninhabited planet for repairs, Hayes sat in her command chair, her mind racing with the possibilities of what came next. They had won one battle, but the war was far from over. The Titan was a powerful ship, but it was not invincible, and the Empire would come at them with everything they needed to be ready. Just then, the ship's comm system buzzed to life. "Commander Hayes, this is Captain Core of the Center System. We've received word of your victory. We're ready to join the fight. We have ships and supplies to offer." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "You're sure about this?" "We've had enough of the Empire's tyranny." Captain Core's voice was resolute. "We've seen what you're capable of, and we want to fight alongside you. We're not waiting for the Empire to destroy us too." Hayes smiled to herself. "That's what I like to hear." She turned to the rest of the crew. "Prepare to receive reinforcements. We've got a war to win." As the Titan continued its journey to the rendezvous point for reinforcements, the crew found themselves more united than ever before. They were no longer just survivors. They were a symbol of something much bigger, a spark of rebellion that had spread like wildfire through the galaxy. The Titan had ignited something deep within every species that had long been under the Empire's thumb. They saw the impossible had been made possible. They saw that if humanity could stand up to the Empire, so could they. The message was clear, and it echoed across the stars. The Empire's reign was crumbling, and it was only a matter of time before the galaxy would rise to take back what was theirs. The news of the Titans' victory spread quickly across the galaxy like wildfire. The Empire's once unshakable authority was now questioned in every corner of the galaxy as word reached oppressed planets and alien species under their rule. The resistance grew stronger each day. New alliances were forged and old enemies set aside their differences to stand united against the Empire. But with each victory came the realization that the war had only just begun. Commander Hayes stood on the bridge of the Titan, staring out into the black void of space, watching as the reinforcements from the Center system arrived. Their ships small compared to the Empire's war fleets, but they were filled with resolve, a new hope that had been sparked by humanity's triumph. "We've got a long road ahead," she muttered to herself as she turned to her crew. "We have to keep pushing. We can't let up now." Vega nodded as she checked the status of their supplies. "We've got more allies, but we're running low on fuel and ammunition. If we don't resupply soon, we'll be sitting ducks." "Agreed," Hayes said. "We need to hit one of their supply hubs, and fast. It's a risk, but we don't have much of a choice." The crew knew the dangers, but they were willing to take the risk. They'd already defied expectations and lived to tell the tale. They weren't about to back down now. They plotted a course for a remote Imperial outpost, known to harbor vital supplies, weapons, and fuel. It was heavily guarded, but the Titan had proven itself capable of the impossible, and they were determined to strike before the Empire could regroup. As they neared the outpost, Hayes gathered her crew in the war room, the air thick with tension. "This will be a surgical strike," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "We need to get in and out before the Empire can call reinforcements. No unnecessary risks, just the mission." The crew nodded in agreement, each one of them understanding what was at stake. The fate of their rebellion relied on their success. Their survival was a testament to their resolve. They approached the outpost under the cover of darkness, using every trick in the book to stay undetected. The Titan was fast and agile, its crew skilled in maneuvering through enemy lines. They evaded patrols and sensors, slipping past the outpost's defenses with precision. They came to a halt just outside the main supply depot. "Ready to breach," Moore reported from engineering. "The shield generators are offline for now. We've got about 10 minutes before they power back up." "Let's make it count," Hayes said as she gave the signal to move out. The crew boarded their smaller assault crafts, each one armed and ready for a high-speed raid on the supply depot. They hit the ground running. The assault was swift and brutal. They cleared out the guards with ruthless efficiency, securing the weapons and fuel they desperately needed. Within minutes, they had what they came for and were already retreating back to the Titan. But just as they were about to board the shuttle, an alarm blared across the compound. "They're coming," Vega shouted, her voice full of urgency. "They know we're here," Moore said as he worked quickly to activate the shuttle. "We're out of time." The crew barely made it back to the Titan as the first wave of Imperial reinforcements arrived, their ships dropping out of hyperspace just in time to see the humans make their escape. "Engines at full power," Hayes ordered as they blasted out of the atmosphere. "Let's get out of here." The Titan tore through space at breakneck speed, narrowly avoiding fire from the pursuing Imperial ships. The crew worked together with fluid precision. The Titan was more than a ship now. It was their home, their weapon, and their hope. As they escaped the outpost and vanished into the vastness of space, they knew they had struck a blow to the Empire's supply lines. But they also knew this was far from over. The Empire would come for them again and again. But humanity had proven one undeniable truth: they would never back down. The weeks following their successful raid on the Imperial supply depot were filled with constant movement. The Titan and its growing fleet of rebel ships moved from system to system, striking with surgical precision, taking down key Imperial targets and liberating oppressed worlds. As they went, word of their victory spread like wildfire across the galaxy, and the resistance grew stronger by the day. Planets that had once been content to submit to the Empire now rallied to the banner of humanity and its warship. But with each victory came a rising tide of retaliation from the Empire. They were no longer seen as a nuisance or a curiosity. The rebels were now the greatest threat to Imperial power. Commander Hayes watched the latest reports on the status of the fleet as they made their way to a newly liberated planet. The crew had barely had time to rest. When their next mission was announced, another major Imperial stronghold needed to be taken down. It was a heavy responsibility, but one that could change the course of the war. If they succeeded, the Emperor's stronghold would lose its foothold in a key region of the galaxy. "All right, people, listen up," Hayes called as she stood in front of her crew on the bridge, her voice steady yet tinged with the weight of their current situation. "This is the big one. We're going after one of their largest and most fortified bases. We've been given intel that their command center is housed on a moon orbiting a gas giant. It's heavily guarded and well defended, but if we can take it down, we'll cripple their communications and supply chains in this entire sector." Lieutenant Vega scanned the tactical map on the screen in front of them, her brow furrowed. "The defenses are intense. We're looking at multiple layers of protection, including orbital platforms, anti-ship weaponry, and ground forces. If we don't hit hard and fast, we won't make it in one piece." "I know," Hayes replied, "but we don't have the luxury of time. They'll send everything they have at us. Once they know we're coming, we need to hit first, and hit hard. We can't afford to make a mistake." The crew nodded in agreement, each one of them fully aware of the stakes, but they also knew the risks were part of the fight. They had no other choice. The plan was set, and they moved into position. The Titan and the rest of the Resistance fleet approached the moon under cover of darkness, keeping their movements undetected by Imperial sensors. The Titan was fast, but the Empire had become more cautious. Their security had tightened since the last raid, but the humans were not to be underestimated. They had learned the ways of the Empire's war machines and adapted. As they neared the moon, the crew could feel the tension in the air. Each breath felt like a silent countdown. The plan was simple: breach the outer defense perimeter, disable their shields, and then strike the command center with everything they had. "Full speed ahead," Hayes ordered as the Titan surged forward. The ship rocked as it entered the gravity well of the gas giant, and the first wave of Imperial fire began to barrage them from above. "We're in range," Moore called out from engineering. "Shields holding, but not for long." "Keep them up as long as you can," Vega shouted as she worked the controls. The crew responded quickly, each one of them moving with practiced precision as they weaved between incoming fire and barreled toward the base. "Prepare for the breach," Hayes said with a determined look in her eyes. The ship rocked again as an enemy missile made contact, but the Titan held together. The crew held their breath, and when the time came, they struck. The outer defenses collapsed as the Titan unleashed a devastating barrage of firepower aimed at the base's shield generators. The explosion sent shockwaves through the surrounding moon, and the Imperial forces inside the base scrambled to respond, but they were too late. "The base is down," Moore reported. "We've got a clear shot at the command center." "Now," Hayes said coldly. The Titan turned and fired its most powerful weapon, yet a concentrated pulse that tore through the command center's defenses. In a single blow, the facility crumbled beneath them, and for the first time in weeks, the crew of the Titan allowed themselves a moment of relief. But they knew it was fleeting. The Empire would not let them go easily. The destruction of the Imperial command center sent shockwaves through the Empire, but even as the facility crumbled and the Imperial fleet retreated, the war was far from over. Commander Hayes knew the victory had come at a steep cost. The Titan had been battered and scarred in the attack. Their shields had nearly failed more than once, and the crew was running on fumes, but they had struck a significant blow, and the Empire could feel it. The crew gathered in the war room after the battle. The mood was a mix of exhaustion and determination. As they assessed their next move, Vega sat at the table, looking over the latest reports from the Resistance fleet. We've taken down the command center, but they're already regrouping. We've got enemy ships closing in on our position. They're going to come for us hard." "We knew they would retaliate," Hayes said, her voice firm. "We've given them a taste of what we can do now. We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us." Moore looked up from his console. "The ship's holding together, but we can't take another hit like that. We're going to need to find a way to get supplies and reinforcements, or we won't make it out of this sector." "Agreed," Hayes said with a nod. "But we don't have the luxury of waiting for backup. We need to strike first. Again, hit them where it hurts." Vega raised an eyebrow. "We're not talking about another supply depot, are we, because they'll be expecting that?" "No," Hayes replied after a moment of thought. "We're going for their flagship, the Emperor's Fury. If we can take it down, we'll cripple their command structure. We've already seen their fleets fall apart without leadership. If we can eliminate their flagship and their command crew, we'll have a chance to push forward." The room went silent for a moment as the crew processed the magnitude of the mission. It wasn't just about destroying the ship, it was about delivering a fatal blow to the heart of the Empire itself. "We'll need to move fast," Vega said. "The Emperor's Fury is heavily guarded. It's not going to be easy to even get close." "We don't need to get close," Hayes said with a sly grin. "We need to hit them before they even know we're there." The plan was set, and the crew moved into action. The Titan would launch a full-scale attack on the Imperial flagship from an unexpected angle, a blind spot in their security network where the Empire wouldn't anticipate a strike. But the risk was high. If they failed, even once, the Empire would be on them in full force. As they approached the designated location, the crew was tense but focused. Hayes stood at the helm watching the stars outside the viewport. The silence on the bridge was deafening as they all prepared for what could be their final assault. "Everyone knows their role," she said, breaking the silence. "We hit fast, we hit hard, and we get out before they can retaliate." "Understood," Vega replied, her hands flying over the controls as the Titan made its way toward the Imperial flagship's blind spot. The fleet of rebel ships followed closely behind. The Titan was their lead. It was humanity's hope and symbol of resistance against the most oppressive force the galaxy had ever known. The closer they got, the more the tension built. The Titan was running low on fuel, the crew was exhausted, and the risk of being detected grew with each passing second. But they had no choice. It was now or never. "Shields up," Moore called as the first signs of Imperial ships appeared on their sensors. They were closing in too quickly. "We're almost there," Hayes said, her voice steady with resolve. "Get ready to launch the assault." The crew braced for the coming battle. They knew the Empire's response would be swift and brutal, but the Titan had already proven that humanity could stand up to the Empire and survive. Now they would prove they could defeat it. The final assault on the Emperor's Fury was unlike anything they had ever faced. The Titan and its fleet of rebel ships moved with coordinated precision. As they neared the flagship's blind spot, the Empire was closing in, but they had no idea what was coming for them. The silence of space was broken only by the hum of the Titan's engines. As they cut through the void, the crew held their breath, and Hayes stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the screen. The time had come for humanity to do what they once thought impossible. Now, Hayes commanded. As they dropped out of stealth, the Titan fired first a barrage of high-powered missiles aimed at the flagship's engine section. The initial blast sent shockwaves through the flagship's hull. Its shields flared, but faltered under the sudden assault. The Titan followed with a powerful pulse of energy, targeting the flagship's command center. It hit directly, and the flagship staggered as explosions ripped through its core. "Direct hit," Moore called out as he watched the damage reports flood in. "Their shields are down. The flagship is vulnerable." "Keep hitting them," Hayes said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "We can't let up now." The battle around them erupted as the rebel fleet engaged the remaining Imperial ships. The Titan and its allies focused their fire on the Emperor's Fury as the flagship desperately tried to regroup. Its fighters launched into the void, but the Titan was faster, more agile, and each of its shots landed with deadly accuracy. The Empire's fleet was in disarray without their flagship's leadership, and the humans pushed forward with relentless force. The Emperor's fury retaliated with everything. It had its weapons fired in rapid succession, aiming to destroy the Titan once and for all. But the Titan had the advantage. It had seen the Empire's moves before, and now it countered with brutal efficiency, each blast from the Emperor's fury missing by mere inches. "Keep firing on the command center," Vega shouted as she maneuvered the Titan around incoming fire. They had one shot at this. They couldn't afford a second pass. Another pulse of energy shot from the Titan's cannons, striking the Emperor's fury again this time. The explosion tore through the bridge, sending debris scattering into space. The flagship shook violently and began to list to the side. The Empire's fleet began to panic. Without its command center intact, the ship was nothing more than a sitting target. "We've got them," Moore said with a wide grin as he watched the flagship systems begin to fail. "The flagship is losing power." Hayes watched the Emperor's fury slow its movements and turn to drift into the darkness of space. "We're not finished yet," she said firmly. "Finish them off." With precision and speed, the Titan fired its final barrage of energy weapons, striking the flagship's core directly. The explosion that followed was cataclysmic. The Emperor's fury disintegrated in a massive burst of light and fire, its once imposing silhouette now reduced to a cloud of debris drifting in the vastness of space. The remaining Imperial fleet fell into chaos. Without their flagship to lead them, their fighters and warships scattered and retreated the Titan, and the rebel fleet moved in for the kill, dismantling what remained of the Empire's forces with ruthless efficiency. The battle was over. The Emperor's fury was no more, and the Empire's dominance had been irreparably shattered. But as Hayes stood on the bridge, staring at the wreckage of the flagship, she knew that the war was not truly over. There would be more battles, more sacrifices, and the Empire would not fall without a final fight. But for the first time since the war began, humanity had a real chance to win. The galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. The future was uncertain, but the spark of rebellion had ignited a fire that would burn until the Empire was nothing more than a distant memory. Hayes turned to her crew and nodded. "We've won the first part of this war. Now let's finish it."